Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Woo, man, I'm excited. Today's going to be a great day. Today, we're going to add some inspiration, motivation, and education in life and business. And we got somebody coming in from the other side of the world, man. This guy is Michael Bryan. Woo, woo. How you doing, Michael?
Doing amazing, Daniel. Yeah, I'm excited and I can't wait to hear what we can dive into today.
Man, I'll tell you what, you're an award-winning podcaster doing amazing things in the UK or England, whichever one you want to say. But I know who you are, man. You're an amazing gentleman, a lot of savvy, a lot of great just guests on your podcast, and you're doing a lot of great things on the other side of the world. So introduce yourself, please, to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, if you don't mind, my friend.
Yeah, well, as you said, I'm an award-winning podcaster. It's the Michael Bryan Show, which is the name of the podcast, and that was really the start for me. Meaning, I wanted to do more than I was currently after being diagnosed with diabetes and losing a friend, unfortunately, that had the same conditions as me. So I had a mortality motivation to do more and play at a bigger level. And the podcast was the start of that. I wanted to learn. I was obsessed with growth as a person, and that kickstarted my journey. So fast forward more than 3 years now, I've grown as a person. I've written what will be 2 books on my birthday, which is as of the 10th of July. I'll have had 2 books written, thanks to the pandemic giving me the spare time to be able to do that. And it's been a wild ride. I've gone from being a tennis coach and a personal trainer to a mindset coach to all kinds of different things that you add to your bow as a business owner, right? But the only job I've ever actually had, Daniel, was a Saturday job at a tennis club that I used to work at when I was about 16. And I lasted about a year working 1 day a week. And then I just decided that I was either too old or I just didn't like taking orders, to be completely honest. And
So what takes somebody from a tennis? So I listened to what you said. You went from a tennis player to a tennis coach to a mindset coach or and then a podcaster. So you're saying that you were fed up with working 1 day a week. I would have liked that schedule, I think.
well, I mean, when you're a teenager, it's almost all that you do because you're in college or you're in university studying. So it was the only day of the week where I could do anything else, and I thought it would be the tennis club. I thought that was going to be the place for me. But as I got older, I realized that I wasn't really built to work any more than that. Meaning, I couldn't have done that every day. I wouldn't have lasted a month if I had to do it every day. So I just got to a point where I had to be happy with how I was spending my time because having not one but 2 health conditions, I really don't know how long I have.
You know
So
what?
I
You
wanted
made a good
most
comment.
of it.
I want to chime in on that. Why do you think so many people? You took action, right? You were not happy. Said, I'm not happy. I'm going to do something about it." The way you just said it sounded so simple, but I meet so many people that make it such a big deal that they tolerate the very things they hate. They tolerate the intolerable, is what I say. But you stepped away from that. You shifted what you wanted to do. Why do you think the first part of the question is, why do you think most people tolerate being unhappy in a situation, whether it's work or relationship, whatever it may be? And B, what did you do to really make that shift? Because the ordinary person is going to stay there and tolerate it.
Well, the biggest thing for me was I was young. So that played a big part in it because I didn't have a lot of responsibilities at the time. And what can happen is your desire for survival or money happens before your desire to be happy. So we get thrown into a world of needing a job, needing work, needing money to support family, to support whatever the case is. And then it just becomes normal. It just becomes a habit. You just get used to living that way. And that's all it is. So the only reason why I differ was I realized that the happiness had to be at the forefront when I was early enough to experiment. I was young enough to take risks, young enough to fail essentially, and I had the freedom to fail because at the time I was still living with my parents and I was still sort of under their wing as such. You know, I wasn't even 20 yet, so it was that came first, and I was fortunately enough to have the freedom to fail, to be able to mess things up, to be able to not have to rely on how I'm going to pay my bills, which is a lot of people get thrust into that when they're 16 or 18 and they don't have a choice because you've got bills to pay.
Yeah,
And
but I love what you said. This is a part of the show where I tell my audience, okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get out your pen and paper because Michael's going to drop some wisdom here. He dropped some wisdom right now. I don't think y'all caught that, but I want to reframe and rephrase what he said because it was a great, great topic. So get out your pens and paper. Remember, when you write down things, you're 90% more likely to remember it and retain it. So you definitely want to take notes of this episode because Michael's going to drop some wisdom. You said being unhappy becomes a habit. Did you hear what you said? That was pretty powerful. And I want people to hear that because so many of us, just the same way we get the habit of eating potato chips, the same way we get in the habit of working out, the same way we get in the habit of doing unproductive, right? Bad habits. One of those bad habits that Michael just said is you get in the habit of being unhappy. And the thing is, you got to realize 21 days to start forming a habit, 90 days it becomes a lifestyle. So after 90 days, if you start tolerating the very thing you don't want to tolerate and you're unhappy while you're doing it, guess what? Part of that unhappiness becomes a habit. I've never heard it said like that, Michael. I love that. So how does somebody, who is stuck in that habit of the ritual daily routines of unhappiness, you walked away, right? You said you were still staying at home and I get that, but what is a word of wisdom or something, a technique that somebody can use? Like, dude, stop tolerating this. You're not happy, but it's a habit. How do you break away from that?
use whatever resources you have left. If that's time, use the extra time when you get home after the job that you need or the career that you want to have. If you've got spending money, don't spend it on the $4 or £4 cup of coffee. Spend it on something else. I think a lot of the time we don't mention that enough. We don't mention that you can have a business and a job. We don't mention that you can have a family, a business, a job, health, wealth, you name it. I think what you've got to do is do the best you can with what you have. And if that's not a lot of time, then you don't have a lot of time. That doesn't mean you can't use the time that you have. So I think that's what it boils down to. If you can learn to do that, if you can learn to figure out where can you find the time, where can you find the money, how can you create the energy, because sometimes it's lack of energy. Sometimes you don't have the health that you need to feel like you've got the energy to put it into something else. So having the commitment to that side of things, being really focused and committed on what do you have left after the survival needs and after the paying your bills are met, being able to take that and go, what do I really want to do with that? And
Yeah.
once you get clear on that, then you dive in.
Well, I love the way you just said that. That's pretty amazing. Let me ask, so you make the shift, you start moving out of the tennis, you leave the job. What in the heck wanted you to become a podcaster? Let's talk about this because right now it's an interesting fact. I'm glad you're my guest on this one because I really haven't had a show on podcasting and business yet. And I think I think you're the perfect person because you've had an award-winning podcast for many years now. And I love what you're doing, and I just I admire you. So thank you for just being consistent. So many podcasters start, they don't even make it to episode number 10, and much less fail and don't even make it to number 20. What made you, first of all, want to become a podcaster? And what did you learn about yourself once you became a podcaster?
Why did I start the podcast? Well, initially I was a listener. So I was listening to a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts. I was obsessed with learning and I found podcasts and I thought, oh my God, I can listen to people that are so far ahead of me and learn from them and take what works and get rid of what doesn't work. And everything started to change and I felt so much more fulfilled just because I was filling my knowledge every single day, multiple hours and hours I'd spend listening. But every now and again, I would leave the conversation with questions of my own. I would finish an interview or whatever podcast it was, and I would go, what about this? I'd love to ask this person that. I'd love to figure out what they were thinking when they were in this particular thing. Like what about that made that so impactful to them? And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could learn from my guests and then I could take that and other people would learn as well. And I'd find people that were just as keen as I was. And that was the start. And because of that, yeah, I wanted to help people with the show. That was the main core of it. Otherwise, I'd have just had conversations with people on the phone and that would have been it. The difference with the podcast was it gives you access to people that you can't get a 15-minute conversation with. It gives you access to people that you simply can't get on the phone for a pick your brain session, right? That you can't get these people. But framing it and positioning it as a podcast where you can benefit hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of people, that makes it more desirable for them. And I still get to tick my box of learning from them, picking their brain over a coffee sometimes. And that's what really stuck out for me because I was able to take what I wanted to know, reframe it in a way that benefited them and it benefits the world if the world found the podcast and listened. So it was a win for everybody involved. And I thought that's got to be what I want to do.
That's so genius. You need to definitely write that down, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to what he said. Interviewing people helps you retain the knowledge, is what he's saying. And Michael wasn't selfish. He really wanted to give back and serve. And his way of giving back was through the podcast. And it started with an idea, right, Michael? He started with an idea. And think about what he said. If you're out there thinking about starting a podcast, you got to just do it. I know myself, I've overthought it many times. I'm like, well, who's going to listen to my podcast? Who wants to listen to that? And then next thing you know, we win podcast of the year. And it's like, wow, how did that happen? But it put me in front of Mark Victor Hansen. It put me in front of Evan Carmichael, people that I would have never had on my podcast or ever met in person. And exactly true what you're saying. So if you're an aspiring podcaster, what Michael's saying is just do it because you're going to have conversations with people that you're never going to have conversations with. You're going to get in front of an audience that you'd have never had. Because the beautiful thing, what I love about it, Michael, is that as I interview you or you interview me or we interview each other, the whole podcast world, your guests, right? You get introduced to your guests' audience. And I think so many people don't see that part of it, that's how your brand grows. The more episodes you have, the more guests you have. Because I just had this conversation with one of my clients. They're like, well, should I just keep my podcast by myself, solo episodes? Like, no, that's the worst thing you could do. He goes like, well, why? I go, well, because you want to have guests, first of all, to have dialogue. And second of all, how are you going to grow your podcast? What's your take on that?
Well, my take on podcasting changed slightly over the years because I realized that I was subconsciously, I suppose, obsessed with collaboration over competition. That became my sole motivation for doing it because podcasting and interviews and whatever the case is, it's pure collaboration. Everyone benefits, absolutely everybody. There is nobody that does not benefit from a podcast interview if it's done right. And it took me a while to realize that, to be fair, Daniel, because I was obsessed with my own learning, because I was sick of reading books. I haven't got the attention span for books anymore. I wanted to hear from amazing people. So initially it was, I got into it for me. And I think that's part of what sustained the show going on for so long. Because as long as that happens, as long as it's a conversation that I take something away, then I'm going to keep doing it. I didn't have a high bar for success or a high bar for consistency. It was, did I have an interesting conversation? Yes, great. I'll see you at the next one. It wasn't, it needs to reach a million people, otherwise I'm going to stop. It wasn't, I need to interview celebrities or I'm going to stop. That's a high bar for consistency. You don't have a celebrity on every single week. Not even the best podcasters in the world get celebrities on every single week. So if that's your bar for success and that's your bar for consistency with your show, you should probably not do a show. You should probably think of something else, because you can't start that way. No one can start that way. No one ever did start that way. And that's what started it for me, where to this day I really do believe that if it's done right, podcasting benefits everybody involved: the listener, the host, the guest, that anyone that can ever listen to the show will benefit from the show. And there are shows that I plan on promoting for years,
Yes.
because if the content's evergreen, you can run like paid marketing towards it and funneling people towards the show constantly. And everyone benefits then. Yeah, you've got to put a bit of money behind it, but if you've got the money, why not? More, everyone benefits again.
So
It's
let me ask you this: how has podcasting grown your business? I will say when COVID hit and God gave me the idea, hey, start your podcast. I'm like, who's gonna listen to my podcast? I don't want to do it. But the thing is, I had been practicing. I had bought a little like $50 setup on Amazon, and I was just doing my reps on Amazon on Facebook Lives. But when the moment came, I was like, well, he goes, just do it. But I didn't realize, right? I didn't realize exactly what you're saying. And listen to what Michael's saying. If you're having great conversations and you're setting realistic expectations, whatever that is to you, because we would love to have that A level guest all the time. But there's great people that are going to come into your life either way. But podcasting really helped me grow my brand. It helped me grow my business, and then winning the award of the podcast of the year, that definitely elevated even more. How did it help you grow your business, Michael?
the main thing is people started to approach me because it benefited them. I'm trying to think of a better way of wording it, but basically they thought that by reaching out to me, asking me for help, collaborating with me, that they would benefit and I would benefit. And this is everything from clients to people wanting me to help them launch their shows, to people wanting to be guests on the show. It put me in a position whereby I had more leverage in whatever the conversation was. And that works with everything. I recently got back into tennis coaching again, and I got my first client within 1 or 2 months of being back in the UK, because he saw my show, saw that I used to be a tennis coach, and wanted me to essentially come out of tennis coaching retirement to help him improve his tennis. I didn't have to market that. He came to me. So that's, again, just a little thing where being consistent, showing up in the right way, creating this brand around myself, which I hadn't really considered at the time, but it was happening without me realizing it. I just took more control over the years and started to be a bit more purposeful with it. Everything else started to change. Everything. People were sending me messages saying they loved the show, wanted to come on. This is what they would talk about. Would it be a good fit? I've had brands reaching out to me. I've had agencies wanting my help with things. Sometimes to do it sort of for free if I know the person, but other times I had a figure to it, right? I had a price to it. So it's expanded my horizons a little bit. I'm not just a business owner. I'm not just a podcaster. People are seeing me more of an influencer, I guess, or, you know, this big name that people want to be associated with, which hadn't happened for the first 2 years.
So it took you 2 years to get to that point, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because so many people, not just in podcasting, but in business, they start as a speaker, an aspiring speaker. They come through our Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, or they want to be a coach, or they want to be that podcaster, or just any business. It takes time to grow and develop and become that person that you're going to be. And I think so many people nowadays, we want that instant gratification. We want to just go from A to Z without going from A, B, C, D, E. There's steps in that. And I'm so glad you said that, because how long have you had your podcast now, Michael?
Podcast is over 3 years now, and it's interesting that you bring up that it's took me 2 years to get to a point where I guess respect is the word that I would use. Like, people start to respect my position a bit more. And the first year, I had no idea what I was doing. The show barely grew at all for the first year, but I did it for my own learning. I did it for the benefit of those select few that did listen, you know, all that sort of thing. And I mean, it's only really took one good year where I really committed to the show. But you've got to go first, haven't you, Daniel? You've got to show the commitment first. You've got to dive in. You've got to build the multiple platform ecosystem of things and stuff and shenanigans, right? The technical term, so that people get involved with and people want to be a part of. Unless you do that as the leader, you've got to go first. But unless you do that, no one's going to want to get involved. No one's going to want to tune in. And you've got to create that yourself. You've got to create the desirability all by yourself.
Yeah. And, people, I love the word that comes to mind is you got to be consistent, right? Consistency is key. And what Michael is saying so many times, and not just in podcasting, but just what are you doing right now in your life and your business that you're not getting the results that you want? Where are you starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting and stopping? And if you would just stop starting and stopping and just start and keep going and push through those hard times and push through those trials and push through those tribulations and push through those challenges, those situations, you'd be a lot further out because it compounds. It's compound interest. That's what Michael's saying. 2 years and then boom, all of a sudden a year later, the third year, it just exploded. It didn't happen just in that 1 year. It's the fact that from year number one, year number two, and then going into year number three, it compounded because he was consistent. Ask yourself that question right now, ladies and gentlemen. Where in my life do I need to be consistent? Where can I be more consistent? If you're wanting to lose weight and get fit, I had to tell myself this, Michael, because of, I'm 47 years old and I can't work out as much as I used to. But I told myself this, and I started making excuses. And I said, "No, this is bull, right? Like this, I'm telling myself a story that's I'm 47. So now I tell myself I'm 47 years old. I feel great, and I'm going to be consistent in working out, and I'm changing my dialogue because we hear what the world says. But no, be consistent. I'm telling myself that because so many times we start and stop, and then we never get the results that we want. So where on your journey you start your podcasting? When was there a time during your business did you lose confidence and you wanted to give up? And how did you get out of it? And what did you learn about yourself?
Well, being completely honest, Daniel, 6 months into my show, I wanted to quit. 6 months in. And the main reason was it was difficult. At the time, my skill level made podcasting difficult. That was everything from uploading to editing to doing the interviews to the whole thing. The whole element of podcasting was too difficult for me at the time. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough in the skill element to be able to do it consistently. And I wanted to give up. I stopped enjoying it. I had a hard time and I needed a month off. I took 1 month off to reset myself, figure out a system for how I could be consistent because my system wasn't built for consistency. The interviews were manually booked in, bouncing emails backwards and forwards. That would take weeks to book in guests. I always had this fear of running out of guests because I had no way to book that far in advance. My entire system was built on it failing within 6 months. And 6 months is a long time for some podcasters, and I think this is why a lot of podcasters fail is consistency isn't baked into the model. It's not baked into how you start your show. And I realized I had problems. I had things that were not efficient. I had things that were not helpful. It was stressing myself out because I thought, oh, it'll be a nice hobby, I'll have a podcast once a week. No, it's so much more work than you might think. It's so much extra work behind the scenes that you don't even realize is going on. Because don't forget, when you're working with busy people, they've got schedules as well. And you've got schedules and you're busy. And it's like trying to find that Goldilocks situation where you're available, they're available, you've got enough time to give to the interview. That's not an easy task.
Definitely.
When I realized that I had to look at it had to be easy short term for it to be consistent. If it was difficult in the short term, it was never going to last. Never ever going to last. It was difficult to begin with. I was sat there like sending emails constantly, trying to maintain the tennis coaching, barely kept the personal training together. It was constant. I was either on my phone, on my computer, or with clients. I didn't have an awful lot of me time. And I got to a point, Daniel, where I would have preferred a nap over, over going to the gym or over sending that other email. I would rather have time off than work, which wasn't why I started. I started everything that I've ever started has been about what I want to do. And when the desire stripped away because I couldn't be consistent with it, I knew something had to change.
So what did you
And
change? What are two things that you changed right away, or what are two things that you like? This needs to like this isn't working because I'm gonna quit.
the first one was I had to get organized, meaning I had to have dedicated time to record my shows, which allowed me to create calendar links, to create this system where people can book in like 6 months ahead. So if they're busy now, what about 6 months from now? Oh, I'm quite quiet 6 months from now. Great, book in 6 months from now. So then I still have guests 6 months ahead, and I still have people now as well. So therefore, I don't worry about not having guests because you
Yes.
can book as far ahead as you want. I don't have to worry about booking people in. I've always got a queue. I've always got people wanting to be on the show. The system worked just because I got organized. I thought, right, 2 days a week, I'll open those days up for podcast interviews. And it just made everything so much easier. All I had to do was say, right, in a day, I can realistically do 2 interviews a day
Yes.
consistently. That's easy enough for me to be consistent. And I thought, right, that's it then. So as soon as I hit two, I would block off the rest of the day so nobody else could book that day. And I was like, this is amazing. All I've got to do is send people calendar links. And then these, when I don't want any more, it was like, oh my God, this is a complete lifesaver. So that was number one. That was the first thing. And the second thing was get better and have a system for uploading and promoting the shows. I had to have a routine rather than, oh, podcast goes out, I think I will do this. No, when the show goes out, I do these 5 things. When the show goes out, I do these 10 things. And that's it. And I have a system, I have a process, I have what some people would call a workflow, right? In inverted.
Yes.
When the show goes out, this is the workflow with that hour that it might, or 2 hours that it might take me to do everything. And I sit there and I go, I'm getting better at this. These 3 hours are now an hour and a half because I'm twice as good or I'm twice as quick or I found little ways of making things easier for me. And it works wonders just by having a process of going, right, how can I make this better? How can I not have a baseline level? Because I don't want to spend 4 hours doing my podcast promotions. I want to be talking to people. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be spending it sat at a computer around with
Yes.
sound waves and the worst thing in the world. But it's not so difficult that I couldn't learn how to do it. I didn't have to hire somebody to do it because I was getting better and I'm getting more consistent with it. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had the same levels and the same settings for every single time I do it? So what I've got to do is make notes of the sort of criteria for the sound, right? Like the amplitude and all that. Write all that down once and then just repeat it every time. And I thought,
Yeah.
this is magic.
Well, now,
I,
now you can hire us. We can do your show now that you're a popular influencer.
the thing that really got a bit, I guess, surreal for me, right? So you're in the game as well. You know what it's like. I was being referred guests from agents and companies and agencies, and I'm sure you've got a couple of people that you're in contact with as well. And they said, "Wait, I noticed that your show's changing. Could you send me some examples of the show? I'll have a listen, get a feel for it, and I'll send you over some clients that I think would be a good fit." I get worried, right? Because they're basing the guests off the quality of the show, right?
Yeah,
Not
you
necessarily.
know, it's funny you said that because I never take whenever they reach out to me, I never take them. I by the grace of God, we've been able to kind of handpick everybody that comes on our show, and there's maybe like two people that reach out to me that I kind of looked at them and I said, yeah, you know what, you'll be a good fit. But as far as if it's funny you said that because right before we came on, I got like 2 or 3 emails and hey, we saw your show and I got a perfect fit. I just said, well, thank you, but no, thank you because I did that once and I didn't even enter the show because it was just it wasn't a good vibe, right? I think you attract the people that you want to be on your show, right? That energy level, like attracts like. So I think that's huge. So what did you learn about yourself, right? Because listen to what he's saying, though, ladies and gentlemen. It's. I hope you're writing this down. He was 6 months already in. He thought about giving up and quitting. What are you thinking about giving up and quitting right now in your life or your business? What are you thinking? Are you thinking about giving up on that dream that you had? The excitement's over, right? Michael was excited. I'm going to be a podcaster, and he had no idea what it entailed. And then he got into the mix of things, and then 6 months in, he's like, "Man, I think I'm going to like this is too much." Where in your life are you having that same mindset? Are you saying, "This is too much, Daniel. This is too much"? But listen to what he said. Instead of pushing forward blindly, he took a step back. He rested for a couple of weeks and he reassessed what he had to do. When's the last time you reassessed your life? And then he took inventory of his life. When's the last time you took an inventory of your life? And he was honest with himself. He goes, crap, I got to get organized. One simple thing. I have to get organized, which is vital. Where in your life do you need to get organized? Where in your life do you have to put step number 2 in to where you got a good processes in place, that routine? Where do you need that routine? Are you just wandering in the wilderness and eating whatever you want to eat? Or are you just hoping you're on the hope system when you wake up and you're in the sales and you're just hoping you sell a car today and you're not doing the follow-ups, you're not doing the marketing or just prospecting at all? It doesn't work that way. So I really wanted you to listen, ladies and gentlemen. What Michael's saying is take a step back, slow down, reassess yourself, take inventory of what you're doing, take inventory of yourself, and where in your life right now do you need to get more organized? And where in your life do you need to just really put in a routine, some process and procedures that are going to help you to really go to the next level? Because whether you work for somebody else in your career, you still got to get organized. There's still something that's keeping you from going to getting that promotion you want. Or if you're that solopreneur, entrepreneur, or that podcaster, what's keeping you from growing? And it could be as simple as just really putting some small processes in place. You're dropping some wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to what this man's saying. So you don't give up. You keep going. What's the one big takeaway that you had about yourself that you really learned that you're like, man, I'm proud of myself?
The main thing that I did learn was there's nothing quite like experience, unfortunately. And when I say that as someone that I was big on mindset, big on confidence, big on improving what I felt about myself. You know, like self-esteem and self-worth. And I used to think I was the worst in the room, Dan. You know, I had health conditions around a lot of kids and teenagers that had nothing wrong with them, right? In inverted commas again. And it was so easy for me to look at the actual facts of the situation, and I did not come out well, right? But as I got more experience, as I learned, as I grew, as I learned just from the experience, that's what builds your confidence. Can you expect to be confident doing something for the first time? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you're someone that has a baseline level of confidence, right? Like you've got an element of faith in yourself where you can really commit. I didn't have that, but now I do. But it's based on experience. It's based on being in this situation, this scenario hundreds of times. It's based on a lot of tweaking, a lot of mini errors, right? Basically, you only tweak what you could do better, which means to begin with, it wasn't as good as it could be. This could be seen as a bit of a failure in terms of your abilities, right? But when you have years under your belt, when you have an element of confidence that you can't get without experience, that's when things start to change. Because it's interesting how the opportunities and the respect that I get from people, or the way people feel about interacting with me, right? It's interesting how that increases and actually matches how good you are. So people start expecting the same as someone that's been in the game for, let's say, a decade, right? That's not going to happen because you're not as good as the person that has been in the game for a decade. So they should get more than you. They should get a heck of a lot more than you. You're just starting out. How can you expect to have the same level of influence and respect and clients and money and free time and all of those things as the person that's been doing it a decade? Why would you expect that? So that's what I would say is there's nothing quite like it, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. And if you can't start, if you can't improve over time, if you can't get to that point where everything that you do is earned.
Ooh,
Everything.
I gotta give an applause for that one. Woo, yeah, baby, that was a good one. You deserve that applause there, Michael. Listen to what he said, ladies and gentlemen. Through the struggle, through the pain, through the part of giving up, he learned experience. And the experience is what built his confidence. The experience is what gave him the courage to continue going forward. The experience did. So many times you want to skip the hard times, but that's what gives you the experience to go to the next level of your life. So stop trying to shortcut the process and get the experience. Like Michael's saying, man, Mike, I'm loving this episode, man. And we're coming towards the end of the show. Let me ask you this. What's a word of wisdom that you would give to somebody, whether it's life or business? Drop a word of wisdom. Talk to us for about a minute. I want you just to look into the camera, talk to the mic, and give us a word of wisdom, and take a moment and just kind of whatever you feel in your heart, whatever God puts in your heart, share that with us if you don't mind, sir.
The more that you understand yourself, the faster everything that I've mentioned in the show happens. You grow as a person, the learnings you take from your experiences, but a lot of time you could spend it sprinting 100 miles an hour in the dark and you go nowhere. What turns the light on and makes every single step in the right direction is knowing what the right direction is for you. But unless you know who you are, you can't possibly find that out. So the only way to make all your steps worth it all your steps count, all the hours that you spend going in the right direction is, as the analogy is if you want to cut down a tree as quickly as you can, you should spend at least half of that sharpening the axe.
Wow, that was some wisdom right there, right? It all falls on us. So many times we look to the person to the left or the right, and we try to put put it on them, but it's on us. It's on us. So, last question of the day is what quote or scripture do you rely on when adversity comes your way? What quote or scripture do you rely on when adversity comes your way?
The first time I actually heard this was I was watching a film. So one of the films that I've grown up watching is the Step Up dance films, right? So the Step Up series. And it was the beginning of the second film where a young version of the actress, right, the main character, was watching other dancers like they glide and spin and flip, and she wanted to be like them. She wanted to be as good as them. And her mother would say, "Take your time, don't rush, just be you, because life's too short to be anybody else."
Take your time. Don't rush. Just be you, because life is too short to be somebody else. Boom, baby. Woo! What an amazing interview here with Michael Bryan here. Michael, how do we get a hold of you? First of all, tell us the name of your podcast again. And where do we get a hold of you? And how if somebody wants to connect with you? Of course, we're going to put some in the show notes, but tell us, where do we find you, man? Of course, I'm going to go looking for you in UK, but you said I'm not in UK, I'm in England.
Well, my show is The Michael Bryan Show. I'm on all the social media platforms as The Michael Bryan, and I would love to hear from your audience, Daniel. So tell us what you think. If you have any questions about what I said, more than happy to go deeper. But it's The Michael Bryan and The Michael Bryan Show wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, what an amazing show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in here this week. And if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business and you need a little push, or you just don't know how to grow your revenue, your sales, go to www.danielgomezglobal.com. That's www.danielgomezglobal.com. And we love to offer you a complimentary discovery session to get you past that. And, to go to the next level, I needed a coach. And sometimes we all need a coach. So don't be shy. Reach out to us here at the Shield of Faith Coaching. We love to help you out. Until next week, that's a wrap. We'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.